What if the man everyone dismisses as a nobody, the one they mock for his stained overalls and tired eyes, is secretly the most powerful person in the room? What if the single father struggling to make ends meet is actually the one person who could save them all? Leo clutched the wrench in his hand, the cold steel a familiar weight against his calloused skin. The marble floor of the executive washroom was slick with water, reflecting the furious face of the man looming over him. Marcus Thorne, CEO of Thorne Industries, a man whose tailored suit probably cost more than Leo's rent for an entire year, pointed a perfectly manicured finger at the spraying pipe. I said fix it. Are you deaf or just incompetent? This is a simple pressure valve. My 5-year-old could figure this out. What is wrong with you? Leo didn't answer. He kept his eyes on the torrent of water, his mind calculating the torque needed, the angle of approach. Answering would only fuel the fire. He had learned that long ago. In this life, the life he had chosen, he was invisible. He was the plumber, the janitor, the man you didn't see. He was a ghost in greasy coveralls, and that's how he had to keep it. For Lily. His daughter. His entire world. Marcus kicked at a puddle, splashing grimy water onto Leo's cheek. Look at you. Pathetic. Do you even have a license for this, or did you just pick up that wrench this morning? I'm paying your company a premium for emergency service, and they send me. You, Clara, Marcus's executive assistant, appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of anxious apology. Mr. Thorne, perhaps we should give him some space to work. The building maintenance team is on their way with the main shut-off key. Marcus whirled on her. Space. This idiot is flooding my penthouse office. I don't have time for space, Clara, I have $1 billion merger on the line. He turned back to Leo, his lip curled in a sneer. How much do you even make an hour? $20. 30. You must be so proud, providing for your family. Leo's phone vibrated in his pocket. A soft, insistent buzz. He ignored it, twisting the wrench with a grunt, feeling the joint begin to yield. The spray lessened slightly. The phone buzzed again. He knew what it was. A picture message from Lily's kindergarten teacher. Every Tuesday was show and tell, and Lily was presenting her drawing of a superhero named Wrenchman, a hero who could fix anything and always came home for bedtime stories. A faint, involuntary smile touched Leo's lips. That smile was his undoing. Marcus saw it. Oh, is something funny? Is my multi-million-dollar office being destroyed amusing to you? Before Leo could react, Marcus snatched the phone from his breast pocket. The screen lit up, displaying Lily's crayon drawing, a smiling stick figure with a huge wrench and a bigger heart. What is this sentimental garbage? Marcus scoffed, swiping through the photos. Oh, a little girl. Yours. He zoomed in on a photo of Leo and Lily at the park, both of them covered in ice cream. Let me guess, single dad, right? Can't hold down a real job, can't hold down a woman. The whole sad package. Leo slowly rose to his feet. The water dripped from his hair, his eyes, once weary and downcast, now held a stillness that was far more menacing than any shout. The air in the room grew thick and cold. Give me back my phone, he said, his voice quiet, yet it cut through the sound of the spraying water. Marcus laughed, a cruel, barking sound. Or what? You'll hit me with your little wrench. Don't be a fool. He held the phone over the puddle pooling on the floor. You want it? Here. He let it drop. The screen went black as it submerged. Now get back to work, idiot. Or you won't have enough money to buy a new one for a year for a fraction of a second. The world tilted. The opulent bathroom, the enraged CEO, the concerned assistant, they all faded away, replaced by the muscle memory of a different life. A life where a threat to his family, no matter how small, was met with overwhelming and decisive force. His hand twitched, his body coiled, ready to close the distance in an instant. But then he saw Lily's face in his mind, her bright, innocent smile. He was Wrenchman now. Not the other thing. Not anymore. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the rage receding like a tide, leaving behind only a cold, hard resolve. He knelt, picked his dead phone out of the water, and turned back to the pipe without another word. He was invisible. He was no one. That was his armor. That was his promise to her. Clara watched, her heart aching for the quiet man who absorbed such cruelty without a single retort. She saw the flash in his eyes, the tightening of his jaw, and she saw the immense effort it took for him to rein it in. She had worked for Marcus for 2 years, and she was used to his tirades, but this was different. This was a violation of something sacred. Leo gave the wrench one final, powerful twist. The hissing stopped. The torrent of water slowed to a dribble, then ceased. Silence descended, broken only by the drip, drip, drip from the ceiling. He had fixed it. He stood up, wiped his hands on a rag, and looked at Marcus Thorne with an utterly blank expression. The valve is sealed. You'll need a new section of pipe. My report will recommend a full replacement of the feeder line. It's old copper, corroded. Marcus, momentarily surprised by the sudden silence, quickly regained his bluster. It took you long enough. Get your tools and get out. Clara, send the bill to accounting. And make sure you dispute half the charges for incompetence. Leo simply nodded, gathering his tools. He didn't look at Clara, didn't acknowledge Marcus again. He just wanted to leave. He needed to see Lily. He walked out of the washroom, his wet boots squeaking on the pristine marble hallway. Clara hurried after him. Wait, she called out, catching up to him by the elevators. I am so sorry. There is no excuse for his behavior. Leo paused, turning to her. In the softer light of the hallway, she could see the exhaustion etched around his eyes, but also a deep, profound kindness. It's just a job, ma'am, he said. People have bad days. That wasn't a bad day, she insisted, her voice fierce with conviction. That was cruelty. He had no right to speak to you that way, or to your phone. She gestured to the soak device in his hand. Please, let the company pay for a new one. I'll expense it myself. Leo shook his head. No, thank you. But I appreciate the offer. He pressed the elevator button. The doors slid open with a quiet chime. I saw the picture, she said softly, stopping him from stepping inside. Your daughter. She's beautiful. For the first time, a genuine warmth filled his eyes, chasing away the shadows. She is, he said, the words full of a love so powerful it was almost tangible. She's everything. The elevator doors began to close, and in that final moment, Clara saw it again, a flicker of something else behind the plumber's tired gaze. Something disciplined, something powerful, something that did not belong in a world of leaky pipes and arrogant CEOs. It was a look that said he was so much more than what the world saw, a king disguised as a pauper. The doors slid shut, and he was gone, leaving Clara standing alone in the hallway, an unsettling feeling of mystery and a surprising pang of connection stirring within her. She knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that their paths would cross again. What she couldn't possibly imagine was that the next time they met, the fate of her entire world would rest on the shoulders of the man her boss had called an idiot. 2 days later, a high-end courier delivered a small, anonymously sent package to Leo's cramped apartment. Inside was the newest, most expensive smartphone on the market. There was no note. Leo knew it was from Clara. He also knew he couldn't accept it, but he couldn't return it either. It was a complication, a loose thread in the carefully woven tapestry of his simple, hidden life. He placed it in a drawer, next to a faded photograph and a single, impossibly heavy military medal he never looked at. He would stick to his cheap, replacement burner phone. It was safer that way. The next week, the main water line in the Thorne Industries building burst, just as Leo's report had predicted. This time, the damage was catastrophic, flooding 3 entire floors, including the main server room. Panic erupted. Clara, tasked with coordinating the disaster response, was overwhelmed. Plumbers, electricians, and data recovery teams swarmed the building. Amid the chaos, she remembered the quiet, competent plumber. She found his company's number and specifically requested him. When Leo arrived, the scene was chaos. Alarms blared, and stressed executives shouted into phones. He navigated the pandemonium with an unnerving calm, his focus absolute. He went straight to the sub-basement, diagnosed the problem in minutes, and began directing the other workers with quiet, confident authority. He wasn't just fixing a pipe, he was commanding a battlefield. Clara watched him, mesmerized. He moved with an economy of motion she'd only ever seen in documentaries about special forces. He anticipated problems before they happened, improvising solutions with whatever materials were at hand. The other workers, initially skeptical, soon fell in line, responding to his unspoken leadership. Marcus Thorne, of course, was furious. He stormed into the sub-basement, his face purple with rage. "What is he doing here?" he roared, pointing at Leo. "I thought I told you to never let him on this property again, Clara." Before she could answer, Leo spoke, not even turning from his work. "Your primary server racks are 3 feet from total immersion, Mr. Thorne. I suggest you focus on that instead of me." His tone was flat, devoid of emotion, yet it carried an authority that silenced the CEO. Marcus sputtered, but for the first time, he seemed to realize he was out of his depth. The situation was spiraling beyond his control, and the only person who seemed to have any semblance of a plan was the plumber he had humiliated. As Leo worked, a new threat was unfolding floors above. Under the cover of the chaos, a team of corporate saboteurs, hired by a rival firm to steal data on the pending merger, infiltrated the executive suite. They were professionals, moving silently through the evacuated offices. Their target was Marcus Thorne's private server, containing the unencrypted merger details. They found Clara first, working alone in the dark office, trying to back up essential files to a laptop. They grabbed her, a hand clamped over her mouth. Her eyes widened in terror. The leader, a man with cold, dead eyes, pressed a silenced pistol to her temple. "You're going to help us get what we came for," he whispered. Leo felt it before he heard it. A subtle shift in the building's rhythm, a tension in the air that his finely honed senses screamed was wrong. He had just finished bypassing the ruptured main, rerouting water through a secondary line. He told the crew to finish up and headed upstairs, telling himself he was just going to check on the server room's progress. He was lying to himself. He was going to check on Clara. He took the emergency stairs, his worn work boots making no sound on the concrete steps. When he reached the executive floor, it was eerily silent. The alarms had been cut. A single desk lamp in Clara's office cast long, dancing shadows. He saw them immediately. 3 men, dressed in black, one holding Clara as a human shield. Her terrified eyes met his across the room. The leader smiled cruelly. "Well, look what we have here. A working-class hero. You're a long way from the toilet, pal." Leo's entire demeanor shifted. The weary plumber vanished, replaced by a predator. His shoulders squared, his gaze became a physical force, assessing, calculating, and utterly lethal. "Let her go," he said. The voice was the same, but the intent behind it was chilling. The men holding Clara laughed. "Or what?" he taunted, pressing the gun harder against her head. "You gonna splash me with pipe water?" Leo didn't answer with words. He took one step into the room, and in that single movement, the illusion of the simple plumber was shattered forever. He moved with a speed that was simply not human. He grabbed a heavy glass paperweight from a nearby desk and threw it with pinpoint accuracy, not at the men holding Clara, but at the main light switch panel across the room. The glass shattered, the room was plunged into absolute darkness, and chaos erupted. Clara screamed as the men holding her grunted in surprise. Leo was already moving, a phantom in the dark, his senses alive in a way they hadn't been for 6 long years. He knew the layout of the room from his previous visit. He knew where every desk, every chair was. They did not. The first saboteur went down with a sickening crunch as Leo drove an elbow into his throat. The second fired his weapon wildly, the flash of the muzzle briefly illuminating the room, revealing Leo no longer where he had been. The flash was all Leo needed. He located the third man, the leader, who was still struggling with a panicked Clara. In the next moment of darkness, Leo closed the distance. He disarmed the leader with a brutal, efficient wristlock that snapped the bone. The men shrieked in pain. Leo didn't stop. He neutralized the final man with a swift, disabling blow to the temple. It was over in less than 10 seconds. Silence returned, punctuated by the moans of the 3 men on the floor and Clara's ragged, terrified breaths. Leo found the emergency light switch, and the room was bathed in a dim, red glow. Clara stared at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe. He was standing over the 3 unconscious men, not even breathing heavily. His hands, which she had only seen hold a wrench, were now clenched into fists that looked like they were carved from stone. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Before he could answer, the doors to the office burst open. It wasn't the police. It was a group of men in immaculate black suits, led by a silver-haired, impeccably dressed man in his late 60s. The man's eyes scanned the scene, the downed saboteurs, the terrified woman, and finally, the men in the plumber's uniform. The silver-haired man's face broke into a look of profound relief and exasperation. He ignored everyone else and walked directly to Leo. "Leonardo," he said, his voice a low, commanding baritone that resonated with immense power. "Your little vacation is officially over. Your father sent me. This mess has made the international news, Leonardo." Clara's mind reeled. Leonardo Vance. The missing heir to Vance Global, the multi-trillion-dollar conglomerate. The man who had walked away from unimaginable wealth and power 6 years ago, vanishing without a trace. It was impossible. It couldn't be him. The man in front of her was Leo, the plumber, the quiet single dad. Marcus Thorne, having heard the commotion, chose that moment to appear, flanked by building security. He saw the downed men and the men in suits and his face went pale. "What is going on here?" he stammered. The silver-haired man, whose name was Arthur, turned his icy gaze on Marcus. "Mr. Thorne. I am Arthur Kensington, Chief Counsel for Vance Global. We are here to retrieve our asset," he gestured dismissively toward Leo. Marcus stared, his brain struggling to process the information. He looked from the impeccably dressed lawyer to the men in the grease-stained overalls. "Him? He's your asset. He's a plumber. He's an idiot." Arthur's lips thinned into a razor-sharp line. "That idiot, as you so eloquently put it, is Leonardo Elias Vance, the sole heir to the Vance fortune. And you, sir, have the singular misfortune of having been profoundly rude to him." Marcus Thorne's world crumbled. The blood drained from his face, and his knees buckled. The man he had mocked, humiliated, and dropped his phone in a puddle, was one of the wealthiest and most powerful men on the planet. A man who could buy his entire company with the interest earned in a single day and not even notice. Leonardo, looked at Clara, his eyes filled with a deep regret. "I'm sorry," he said, the words heavy with the weight of his secret. "I never wanted this." The life he had so carefully constructed, the quiet, anonymous world he had built for his daughter, had just been blown apart. The ghost was gone, and Leonardo Vance was back, whether he wanted to be or not. The full weight of his identity settled back onto his shoulders, and with it came the crushing burden of his family's empire and all its enemies. But as he looked at Clara, who was now staring at him not with fear, but with a dawning understanding, he realized something else. He wasn't just Leonardo Vance, heir to a fortune. And he wasn't just Leo, the plumber. He was the man who had just protected her. He was Wrenchman. And for the first time in a very long time, he didn't feel like he had to face it all alone. His world had not ended, it had just become infinitely more complicated, and perhaps, infinitely more complete. He had to protect his daughter from this life, from the vipers and jackals that came with the Vance name. He looked at Arthur. "Clean this up," he ordered, the command coming to him as naturally as breathing. Quietly. No police, no press. The men on the floor work for Spectre Corp, a rival of ours. "Handle it," Arthur nodded, already speaking into his sleeve. "And Marcus," Leonardo said, turning his cold gaze to the trembling CEO. "My family's corporation will be acquiring yours by morning. You will be given a severance of $1. You are fired." "Get out of my sight," Marcus simply collapsed. Leonardo then walked to Clara, gently taking her arm. "Are you all right?" She could only nod, her mind still reeling. "Let's get you out of here," he said softly, his voice once again the gentle tone of Leo, the plumber. As they walked away from the chaos, leaving Arthur and his team to erase every trace of what had happened, Leonardo knew his fight was just beginning. He had to bridge the gap between two worlds, not for himself, but for the little girl waiting for him to come home for a bedtime story, and for the remarkable woman now walking beside him, whose simple act of kindness had reminded him of the man he truly wanted to be. What hidden strengths do you keep from the world? Do you believe a person's job defines their worth? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to share this story with someone who needs a reminder that heroes are often found in the most unexpected places.